Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I want to add to Greg's welcome and to Fahim's welcome for taking the time. So just real quickly on where Microsoft is in health. We've been in the health market for 35 years. I know that sounds a little bit strange because you're seeing headlines now, Microsoft's in health, Amazon's in health, Google's in health, but we've been in the market for 35 years. And what we've been doing for those 35 years is learning your business, learning and getting more industry specific. We've moved from a packaged software vendor to a hyperscale, hypercloud vendor that is supporting applications all the way through SaaS applications, if you think about our productivity and our other pieces, down to, and more importantly, how you can deliver on data and analytics, infrastructure, always with the developer in mind. And I want to start at the top. What we count on is trust. We run on trust. If you can't trust us to be your partner, and if our partners who rely on us can't be trusted, then you're not going to be able to be successful. And because of that, we have the most cloud compliance of any of the hyperscale vendors, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. But more important, we are leaders in the use of ethical AI, ethical decision making, and ethical use of data specific to this webinar. And we take that trust that you put in us very seriously. Most of our top health plans are using some part of our cloud infrastructure, either a SaaS-based product or direct infrastructure or some combination. Most of our health plan customers are now at a point where they're looking at analytics very seriously. Why? As we look to engage our members more seriously, as we look to new initiatives, we still have that technical debt. We have that large technical debt of our administrative claim systems and processing systems and sometimes even some of our automation systems. And where RPA and other things can help us get out of that technical debt, surround it, bots, etc. In reality, we need to reduce that technical debt to be agile, to be able to move into the next phase of really starting to treat our members as a cohort of one. How do I know exactly what the next best action is for every member? How do I get that next piece of membership? How do I recruit my next member? And more importantly, how do I operate within the ecosystem within new standards like the FHIR interoperability standards and other interoperabilities with my plan and providers as value-based care slowly, and I emphasize the slowly, becomes reality? How do I support this? I support this with new agile development. Well, how health plans have seen this is invest in analytics, because everything I just talked about relies on more data, more analytics. You've seen major announcements by Humana. You've seen major announcements by every other major health plan around what they're doing to create longitudinal records and to create a vision for next best action. Microsoft has been investing heavily through our partners in these efforts throughout the ecosystem, and I think Humana is one great example of how analytics and data will drive the next generation. But don't count on me, count on your brethren. Other blue plans are investing in, the FTE counts in the hundreds or at least tens for some of the mid-sized blue plans, in analytics departments. VP of Health and Analytics, VP of Analytics, no matter what the title, are now reporting to the C-suite directly. Analytics has been tagged by both the dollars going to it and by the seriousness of how the industry is reacting as the #1 issue that has to be dealt with. But what's the problem with it? We'll come to that in a moment. On the next slide, I just want to talk about security for a moment and take a step back. As I mentioned, Microsoft runs on trust, and that trust is given to us by you and being extended by you to your customers. Yes, we do BAAs. Yes, we're HIPAA. We provide provisions for you to be HIPAA compliant. Yes, we do all of those things. But more importantly, we take this as a serious living and breathing piece of our business. Our high trust certification is a continual, except for 1 month of the year, we are in a continuous audit cycle. That high trust certification for healthcare, as well as our FedRAMP moderate, even FedRAMP high regions that we support within our Azure infrastructure, those are available in every region around the world. So this isn't something that we do one-off, here's your special data center. This is part of our DNA, how we operate. We operate with your trust and your data in mind. But trust goes beyond compliance, as we've all seen. Trust is also trust us with your IP. We don't want your IP. Your IP is your IP. If you have a unique way and something that adds value to your business, that should be yours, not the vendor that you're choosing. And lastly, and most importantly, your data is your data. We are processing, we are your back end, and we support our partners who are helping you to analyze, to do these analytics. But we don't use your data for any other purposes. It is encrypted for you and only accessible by you. And we can talk about all kinds of details with you offline on public private key assignment and everything else that assures you that your data is here. And lastly, sovereignty. If you need to operate within the sovereignty, both here in the US or external US, we will guarantee you that you'll have only US employees and only US data centers that are handling your data or within your data. And we will tell you, you will actually select which data centers they are. I went a little deeper than I normally do on trust because I want to make sure you understand that the hypercloud and trust can be scary. It can, put you at risk, and we take that risk very, very seriously, and our duty to you very seriously on how we handle that. But specifically, getting back to analytics. So I mentioned people are hiring tens and hundreds of analytics and VP level. What is the number one issue with health plans migrating to a modern warehouse, modern data warehouse, modern architecture for handling this? You have to. The push is there. The new data coming in, the IoT data, streaming data. You need to move to new data warehousing options. Where are these failing? They're failing by having a succinct hybrid related plan and having a partner who can deliver on that plan and has a tried and true methodology to take you through your venture into this cloud and this hybrid world. And that's why today we partnered with Brillio on this webinar to tell you, because Brillio brings in not just healthcare experience. As you know, we're just slow. We're always behind the times a bit, but they bring experience in from around the world and around multiple industries in how to deliver this successful from design through outcome. So with that, let me turn it over to Fahim, who's going to lead you through how you can be successful. Fahim?
Thank you, Sam, for that great introduction. Kind of sets the stage and some of the things that I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about digital transformation for payer industry specific. So there are several key elements which are key for the payer industry, and we want to make sure that we focus our discussion and focus our expertise in that area because it's relevant to you. So anywhere from your typical marketing and sales opportunities. Obviously, we are all here to market our capabilities, increase our subscriber base, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot of experience in several industries in that space, which we bring into the payer industry as it applies to you. Some of these are standard practices, which can be modified from one industry to the other. Similar thing in underwriting and actuarial, to do the risk analysis for underwriters and do some of those things based on the data to run some actionable analytics, some insights into the data to de-risk some of those underwriting activities over there. The next one is about the network management. Again, using the data that will be saved in your data lake or data lakes, whichever way we end up going, is to manage your whole utilization of the network and also onboard new networks, offboard clients, and so on and so forth. Key thing for any payer industry is customer satisfaction and all that, obviously. So member management and doing member 360. Things like those automatically become a given at payer industry, and we help them using insights into member data and anything relevant to that case. Billing commissions and MLRs, obviously, all important at the end of the day. That's where our revenue cycle wants us to be to make sure we get paid and all that. Similarly, operations, product management, and also some of the back office functions like corporate and HR, legal, all those. Depending upon all the data that is shared or kept in the repository over there, depending upon the needs by the functional areas of business units, you can make best use of it. And last but not the least is, like Sam mentioned, compliance is huge in healthcare industry. I don't have to tell you, you probably will tell me 10 times about it. And this is where we can give all kind of audit reports of compliance and make sure that the environment is compliant to what is required. So how is the analytics helping all insurtech industry? And there's a lot of parallels of what is done in payer industry to what is done in financial industry as a whole. And a lot of similarities, a lot of things that you guys share other than the healthcare flavor on top of it is very important over here. So financial and insurance industry, similar concepts, similar things. So we can leverage a lot of learnings and experience from one industry and apply across other industries also. And we do that. That's one of the value we bring because of our exposure and our hands-on knowledge in this. Cutting on your admin cost and also segmenting your customers properly and then to provide exact services as applied to them. The whole care management using customer 360 or using advanced analytics to provide insights in the data that exist over there. Keep in mind, bringing the data in is one set of the equation. The bigger thing is to bring insights from the data, and that's where the value comes in, and that's where our expertise and our knowledge comes and helps all our customers. Obviously, in your case, we'll be doing the same. Just as a benchmark, some of the recent insights that we did into all the customers that we are doing, we have helped our customers save over $350 million in several different administrative costs by using their data properly and using different techniques to analyze it. On the sales and marketing automation, so using the same marketing dollars and getting the most value is one of the big things that use of analytics brings to the customers. So we have either help customers reduce their marketing costs by looking at campaign analytics and also looking at rate of return for any of their campaigns or marketing activities and help them articulate and set up the new marketing campaigns properly. And then using AI and other tools to enhance the effectiveness of their marketing programs. And last but not the least, like I talked earlier, to reduce the admin costs by underwriting functions to almost by 26% using AI and advanced analytics. So as Greg mentioned earlier, we thought it will be helpful if we bring our point of view on some of the typical use cases that apply to payer industry, especially in healthcare. So one is the risk exposure analytics. Obviously, as you are going more into fee for service, pay for performance, and also fraud detection and stuff like that, it's very important to look at number one is all the patient data and identify different techniques and different ways to reduce or minimize out-of-pocket expenses wherever possible. And also, depending upon patient persona of their history, be able to predict what kind of claims are expected from that patient in going forward, and then calculate the risk based on them. Some of the techniques that we use, which we have used in other places, I'm not going to read all of them, as you can see them on the screen, are the best models for data science to predict this kind of information. And what it does is, at the end of the day, it can give, as more data becomes available, but from your near history, last 6 to 9 months or 6 to 12 months of history, predict the expenditure that you should anticipate for that particular persona or whatever the case may be. To also then look at how to reduce those costs and also do that. The second case is obviously the fraud. This is huge in all industries, and in healthcare industry over the past few years, there has been much more emphasis on identifying fraud early and preventing them, carrying on with that, whether it is anywhere from prescribing unnecessary tests or repeat of the same thing or whatever the case may be. So this kind of fraud, basing same techniques that we are using in other fraud analytics and real-time fraud detection systems, we can identify them in real time or in batch as possible. But it is something very predominant in, as I said earlier, in financial industry and healthcare industry to identify fraud in real time, and that's what we bring to the table. It could be whether multiple claims of the same or enormous amount of claims from one particular provider or whatever the case may be, and come up with those algorithms and models to identify them early or in real time. Moving on, obviously, we want to help and design our plans better for years to come. Based on learning from the last year, we want to offer either better plans, redesign some of the offerings, and make sure that we grow our subscriber base. And that's very important. So having that past data, what worked, what didn't work, analyze and bring insights into and predict what would be the best combination or introduction of a new offering altogether or plan for next year. And also predict what would happen as the time goes on. Obviously, the patients, they are growing older. There are new things which will come in. Be able to predict what will happen in the future based on greater population data is another factor that comes into the picture, and it helps you identify your plans better. What happens at the end? Obviously, you can tailor make your plans, identified for the particular personas of the patient, and be more effective in that way. Going forward, network management, obviously, we talked about this. Also, effectiveness, to look at both effectiveness or ineffectiveness utilization of provider network by the patients or the subscribers, and based on that, look into it, how to optimize it so more in-network utilization is increased. So these are some of the areas where right off the cuff we can come in and help customers. I'm sure there are other use cases, and we can talk about it. There's obviously the models around reduce any other kind of waste, identify procedures likely to succeed or not succeed, and help that, and also ranking and performance management of your doctors in the network are some of the other use cases that come to mind, would be very helpful to you. So let me share some of the success stories about how we have effectively implemented data lakes for different customer in the industry. I'm going to just share a couple of them just to show an example of not all implementations are alike. And it's very important that an implementation or establishing this whole environment for any customer is more in line with them. Just like Sam mentioned, whole bunch of security and compliance requirements, depending upon your needs, have to be baked into the solution and employment. This particular example that I'm sharing is one of the very large financial company in Europe. And they wanted an end-to-end data lake solution where they could not only capture and store a lot of their data, but also have the capability to do some real-time advanced analytics and generate insights and effectively do repeat them. The other main thing, which I'll talk in detail later on, the value of data lake is self-service, and they wanted to do a lot of self-service and BI. So move from restricting people to only use what is there, open their creativity and use self-service BI to ad hoc reports and stuff like that. And obviously, as you're familiar in Europe, compliance with GDPR is top of the line, and you have to make sure that all data is secured according to the compliance. Without going too much time into the detail, the solution which we developed for them was typically that we would build upon our experience and accelerators built for health, for financial industry, using some of their compliance, using some of their processing knowledge, and other insights based on their need. This was the general Azure implementation for them. What we did was, obviously, we had to make sure with the amount of data they captured, there was a good data management strategy, master data management, data quality, security, compliance, governance, and also to have other insights available in their data with the larger ecosystem around information governance. And also, the other thing was to bring customer up to speed and to use this more effectively. Most of the data lakes implemented become unsuccessful when they're not utilized properly by the users. So in the process, the organization change management was the key thing. So enable the end users to be creative and use more value of it. And obviously, security and compliance. What was the result? So we usually go back after a little while and capture success stories from the customer and see how effective our whole activity was, and then we use that learning to become better going forward. In this particular case, over year and plus implementation over there, they drastically reduced their storage cost by effectively using the right storage, the right amount of storage, and other techniques are around it. They really save their cost by 70% in their storage alone. And then using some of the automation and some of the other frameworks which come inherent in Azure, making use of that, we actually expedited their onboarding. I'll talk about our framework, which goes in line with Microsoft Azure's capabilities to ensure faster onboarding, and then also to reduce their operating cost. What biggest value comes to the customer was they were able to utilize this environment and get the benefits out of the analytics models that they wanted to use as part of this data lake. So faster to market, faster to reap the benefits of this, and savings in the process are the key tenets that that we want to bring to any customer in this case. The second one is another case, slightly different than the previous one, but this is also a financial firm in US. Here, they wanted to take the personal banking to next level, bring up with some new offerings that were more geared toward the millennial segment, and come up with a whole new concept of digital banking and be much more active. Now, keeping the millennials in mind, they want results now, they want capabilities, they want innovative stuff over there. So we had to think of completely in their mindset. But at the same time, excuse me, with the whole millennial mindset, there is that exposure of people who would misuse, hackers, fraud, and all that. So real-time fraud detection was one of the primary things that they wanted to see. And also, when you enable P2P payment systems, the fraud detection, and then on the other side, giving them mobile capabilities were also important. Excuse me. So what we did, we designed their whole data platform that can ingest data at a very fast rate, and both from their transaction systems and their backend systems, and be able to project that into their mobile applications in real time, and using some very key data science models and algorithms, detect fraud in real time, not after the fact, not becoming a liability for the banking over there. So detect frauds in real time, and also use several automations which come inherent, or we divided by creating specialized scripts for them to be able to ingest batch data from different sources in real time. What in this case we used was the blob storage for their raw data and a combination of Cosmos DB to publish the data. Databricks was used for doing some real-time analytics. So in this particular case, as you can see, the core Azure skills supplemented by some of the tools which are the top tools for those industries. We use them in there, whether it was for analytics or data stores. The impact, obviously, the real-time monitoring and fraudulent transaction detection was a huge plus for the customer. The customers were getting the 360 view in a much better way, and they were able to drive services based on the personas that they were serving, and obviously. Based on the persona, giving the real-time UI UX on their handheld devices, tailor-made to them. So very personalized experience. So the side benefit that the customer was getting is more engaged customer out of this. I'm going to go quickly on the third one. Obviously, over here, this is a testament of some of the trust Microsoft has in Brilli and our capability. We provide these as one of the services within Microsoft. If I can talk about it over here. And this was to use Azure environment more in an IaaS model to reduce bottlenecks and use some of the capabilities that go as part of the IaaS. The real-time ingestion and the availability of data or democratization of the data were some of the side benefits that we received over here, and we decreased the expense and increased the revenue of this BU by about 6% by streamlining this process, giving the ability for Elasticsearch, giving them ready-made semantic cubes where they could come in and access the data relevant to them, and so on and so forth. So why do data lakes fail? We talked about some of our success areas. Obviously, like I said earlier, misalignment of the objectives and the data lake maturity. So you have to be objective about what the data lake can provide, so your expectations are in line with what will be the outcome from there. This technology is changing at a very fast speed. New technologies, new capabilities are built, and we implement them in real time with the customers as they become available for general administration. Move to the new platforms. Moving a new platform becomes very hard for most of the customers. Having a partner who keeps up to date. In our case, for example, the reason Greg highlighted our gold partnerships with Microsoft is Microsoft and us, we work very close together to make sure we are ahead of the curve and know of the new capabilities as Microsoft is bringing in, and we can quickly bring in, adopt that for our customers also. Having bad data governance actually kills the whole purpose. Not having data stewards, not having the ability to manage the data quality or have tools available to catch data quality early enough so that it is corrected, and by the time end users use the data, they have so whole data governance or information governance cycle is important. In this same context, I also talk about the data lineage, data audit, and data security, because that is part of the data governance. Not having those properly implemented can be a disaster for a data lake implementation. Obviously, lack of experience says for itself, both from the customer and the vendor side could be a big mistake. So a vendor who has experience not only taking a customer from point A in a legacy environment to point B in the cloud, but a vendor who can actually take you beyond that and use the full value of the cloud that cloud has to offer, in this case using all the capabilities Microsoft has to offer as part of automation, flexibility, elasticity, security, compliance, and all that. And last but not the least is you have the data, getting the data out of getting the value of the data is the key for your success of implementation. So from our learning, some of the things to watch out, obviously I talked about data quality, avoid data swamping. And data swamping meaning bringing irrelevant data, trying to confuse and not having the proper ability to extract data from there. Very important to well define your data discovery exercises and maybe have a data lab where you can run some of those experiments for discovery and be able to properly define your semantic layer for data search so that it is accessible by the right people at the right speed and they can use it. Having a data catalog is very important, obviously, and the ability to do data wrangling. So some of the key resources in your internal or your vendors helping you would have to have the ability to do data wrangling, look at the data different ways, and great value out of it. Data user, so the reusability is the second thing. So we looked at the data and create data sets for models which are specific to your use to minimize as much as possible manual intervention and use data as it is, but still give you some ability to do it, but bring most of those capabilities built in early enough for the end users. Have a DQ framework, data quality framework, which are ML driven. Learn as you go and implement as you go along. This this is continuous improvement, continuous enhancement of your environment. And finally, framework and modular development approach for ingestion and ETL and the data quality. Patterns-based ETL is very important to design your environment, like the 3 example cases which I used, specifically built on the patterns of their use. Ingestion patterns, whether the data comes in as a trickle feed, as a batch feed, real time, they all require different solutions. So having those pre-considered and solutioning or designing an environment to use your patterns as different activities is very important. Enabling the adoption, and I briefly touched about it earlier, adoption by both internal resources and all parties which are involved with it is very important. And that's how the reusability and usability of the data that you are now making accessible to people is very important. And then last but not the least in adoption is having data models that encourage cross-business units to collaborate and use data and those sources which were previously not available to them to become a little bit more creative, be able to predict future by using data from different source rather instead of be restricted to what is only available to yourself. And last but not the least is have the right processes and skills available to do that. I'm going to touch about that in my next slides about some of the ways to use the agile pods both for process and also for an organization change management that are good. So,
hey Fahim, sorry, this is Basant, and I think we have a question.
Sure.
If you can, see the Q&A tab, there's a question as well. So whenever
I'm in full screen mode. If can you see the question? Can you say the question?
Sure. In your experience of working for the payer industry, which area of the payer industry do you feel we are most impacted by digitization?
So almost every area in payer industry is a good candidate for digitization. So as you know, business insights. All business insights that payer industry brings in depends on the data collected in the past. Some of the challenges that payer industry has is the customer-centric approach and also using some actionable insights based on customer or patient-centric approach. So that's one area. Then also to look into fraud data. So your provider data becomes important to digitize all the information that is coming from your provider. So in this industry, pretty much everything is important. Last but not the least is also using capabilities like the Fire server at Azure for interoperability with other healthcare exchanges to get that information. So this goes beyond digitizing your own information, accessing other which is available to you. I hope I answered that question. Okay.
Yes, we can move on. Thanks.
Good. So going forward, I'm going to quickly go through it. We talked about this already. What are some of the key pain points in payer industry, and which is in line with the question which was just asked. Looking at the census and data, so a lot of consumer education that is provided by the providers or the healthcare providers. How effective are those, and if they need to be improved, we based on the data and the history of patients who were provided that. It's very easy to bring insights and predict and modify those training plans and all that. For the fee for service and other modules, how effective are those? Obviously, we talked about is your data immune to fraud and abuse? So you have to be very cognizant, and I think Sam covered that very effectively. That the compliance is pretty much built into everything that is delivered in Azure. And obviously from our perspective, Brilio, when we implement solutions, we not only use everything Microsoft is bringing as part of their Azure offerings. On top of that, we have partnered with Palo Alto Network to bring in a whole bunch of next layer of security using the cybersecurity and other insights over there. So are you able to make use of the social communities and the doing some kind of the sentiment analysis and other inputs to make your offerings better? Social determinants affecting you, that's an important thing also. And finally, are you saving your admin cost of digitizing and underwriting? So these are typical questions which are asked by payer industry. So why use Brilio for data lake? I think I saw a couple of other questions. See, two more questions over here. Oh, okay.
No, we just received just the one. Go ahead, fine.
Okay, just one. Go ahead. So why use Brilio for data lake? So obviously, we have extensive experience in implementing data lakes as what we do is very objective assessment of your current needs upfront and look at how effective data lake will be, what would be the applicable tools for you, and how it is. A lot of it is on pattern based and your assessment of your environment, and also how quickly you can get the benefits and increase your ROI. And like we talked about, rapid implementation. Business nowadays don't have the patience to wait 1 year for the benefits to realize. So it's very important to bring benefits right up. We took the analytics and agile pod concept, and I'll talk about it in my slide later on, to expedite adoption, bring results quicker, faster, and start realizing the benefits of data lake upfront rather than a long-term plan which doesn't bring results until later. Typically 2 to 3 months of your first activity, you should be seeing benefits, and then more benefits come on a regular basis. Data management security, we touched upon that. It is part of our DNA, and we are very key in making sure that the environment is as secured and aligned with what's needed for you. We leverage a lot from our alliances. I talked about, obviously, with Microsoft, our alliance not only gives us the ability to use best of best over there, also have the relationship where we can pull in expertise from Microsoft, which takes us beyond the regular services that are provided over there, and vice versa. And last but not the least is the data scientists and experts who are industry experts within Brilio, who help you not only bring the value out of the data within yourselves. We are helping several industries in monetizing data. Some of the recent big success stories we had where we helped the customers in the real estate industry. We have now several customers who are monetizing the data that they have captured with home sales and all that, and using it different ways, and we help them monetize the whole strategy over there with them. What are some of our tools? So obviously, one of the main things which Brilli does is, like Greg mentioned earlier, we are focusing on putting all our effort in digital technologies, and that only. We are not trying to do everything for everybody. So that gives us the ability to focus on building frameworks and building accelerators in it. Clip platform is our framework, which pretty much makes a risk-free migration from your legacy environment to cloud, in Azure in this case. DHI or D is for AI and ML. It brings different kind of NLP capabilities and insights into your data, both from a machine learning and AI perspective. Then our consumer insights platform, which we use in CPG industry, is something that is applied to other industries, obviously CPG being the biggest one in consumer insights, and it applies to you as it includes a data integration hub from different sources, and be able to give you insights in real time and next gen capabilities. And last but not the least is the data validation framework, which assures that the data coming in is always the good quality data, and you don't lose any data in your move. So we have an ABC and ABCN framework. If you're not familiar, it is audit, balance, and control framework, which ensures that the data from the source and the target is all properly moved and is all there. So there is no inaccuracies or discrepancies between the data from source and that. And if there is some inaccuracy or there is any loss of data, the ABCN framework automatically generates emails and sends it to the data stewards or the data owners to identify that there is issues with transferring that data. Huge importance is given to this, because a lot of time not realizing what data you haven't received or was received in error can cause anomalies in your models. Picking up speed. So this is the DevOps launch pads where we find it to be very successful for our customers to adopt data lakes in cloud. What's the key differentiator over here from Brilli's perspective? The launch pads that we define can be aligned either to a business unit or to an SBU, depending upon the customer need, or a combination of both. Or in your case, different associations or different blues can have multiple launch pads within their environment. So each launch pad not only has the core team of Brilli resources, the Scrum Masters, the developers, and the data architects, and so on. We also encourage and bring in the customer SMEs and also any vendor SMEs that needed for accelerating adoption and accelerating the implementation over there. The advantage that we have seen from our customers, and why this is so popular with our customers, is that having customers and the vendors part of the launch pads, it really helps in two ways. Your internal IT resources or CIO organization, unless they adopt it, business users don't adopt it. So it brings the adoption within the organization very fast, number one, and it brings the training element in real time to it as they are working whether as an SME or part of the advisor to the launchpad. They learn and they also provide the expertise that is very good in real time. So different launch pads, depending upon the needs of an environment of the customer, we launch them. It could be 5 to 7 people launch pad each, with some ad hoc members brought in. The second big advantage that we bring in over here is, other than the dedicated launch pad, we bring in a core team of quote unquote elastic resources which are available to all these launchpad. So if you imagine one of the blues has several projects going on, or one of the SBUs have several projects going on, and they certainly need an extra number of developers and data architects, whereas they don't want to sustain them for a long time. The elastic resources are temporarily assigned to that particular launchpad. The biggest advantage of these launchpads is that the core team is so aligned with the business unit or the function area that they are supporting, that they can very rapidly respond to a request. They don't have to relearn the system. They don't have to relearn the environment. They know most of the things because they are an extension of customer at that time. Last but not the least, why we differentiate our launchpads from other vendors is this is not just a DevOps as a development launchpad, it actually automates the whole orchestration. So using all the tools and capabilities that come inherent with Azure, when we deploy the code, that code is actually orchestrating the environment. It is increasing, decreasing the compute capacity per request by the developers. It will automatically increase, decrease the storage, and anything else that is needed. It will redeploy different network segments. All those scripts and automation, which are inherently available with Azure, this launchpad automates that. So essentially, we are providing you infrastructure as a code service, not only development service. This, at an average, saves our customers anywhere from 30 to 50% within 12 months of their not only operations cost, but on their spend with the cloud vendor, because you have automated, number one, as most of the process, and number two, you are automatically scaling up, scaling down, or switching off the compute environment when not in use. So all those capabilities, infrastructure as a code brings to the table. So that's the biggest value where we sum all our things. Last but not the least is, we talked about earlier, quick to market. By using launchpads, multiple teams, both in US and supplemented by teams in India, we are able to run 24/7 operations, and typically 6 to 8 weeks, we are able to have the first models up and running and make use of them. Picking up speed, we are almost at the end. I think I'm just going to go to the punchline. We are very confident of how we can come in and help our customers, all of you online today. A successful journey, like we talked about earlier, is to have an assessment done of your environment and have a realistic expectation set up for you. So as part of my organization, along with our relationship with Microsoft, we offer a 2 weeks free assessment of your environment in any of your customers who are online, and to give you the art of the possible and give you a true situation that you should expect from your data lake.